calling from a 651 area code. Who's this?
Hey, Sam, it's Andrew from Minnesota.
Hello, Andrew. What's on your mind?
Well, naturally, the recent shootings are on my mind, and I was just hoping to offer up a soldier's perspective on just the way that the police apply force here back at home.
Please.
So, the point I want to bring up is what was rammed into our heads overseas, going over to Iraq, called positive identification, or PID for short, which is what they usually use. I mean, it's rammed into your head as you're training before you go over there. It's rammed into your head before you go out on patrol. It's constantly just brought up, positive identification. You don't point your barrel at anybody unless you can positively identify that that is the suspect that you're looking for, and or they have a weapon and pose an active threat to you or the civilians in the area. So like the guy in Chicago who had a knife and was walking away from the police, not towards a crowd of people or anybody, just walking down the street. You know what I'm talking about, that incident. That argument would be squashed with positive identification. You could not positively identify that guy posed a threat to anybody. He was not within arm's reach of anybody. He wasn't running towards somebody, lunging, you know. And we have guys in Leavenworth for that right now.
Let me ask you a question, though. Let me ask you a question first. Why?
Sure.
Why did they teach you PID?
Well, basically, those rules of engagement started to get put into play after everybody started to find out, you know, about, and honestly, and it was because of the community's reaction in Iraq. And the leadership, I mean, people and people back here in the States saw what was happening, that we were just lighting up anything and everything for any reason. And obviously, you're losing the support of the people there in the country, you know, and obviously, and that was to mitigate that, and it's like here, they just say, "What are you complaining for? You're making it uncomfortable for the cops. Sit down and shut up when they murder you."
I mean,
it just blows my mind.
I asked that question about why. I mean, if people can just contemplate why it would be so important to impose that level of assurance before you fire your weapon at somebody in the context of a country that we are occupying and arguably actively at war with. I mean, if the reason
they
is
care
because
about the opinion.
Right, and
sorry, go ahead.
it means that when we don't do that, it creates a feeling amongst the people in that other country that is obviously contrary to a functioning society. And so if we have if we lack that level of assuredness when we are shooting black people, of course people in these communities are going to look upon the police as worse than an occupying force, right? I mean, and
exactly.
And so I mean,
and you hear on Fox News, they're saying when they find out, oh, well, he didn't have a busted taillight, and they bring out this story, oh, well, Philando didn't have a busted taillight, but there was a robbery in the store in the area 2 days prior, and the guy had a broad nose, and so did Philando.
Right. I
mean,
mean,
what? He shot the wrong guy. Positive identification. He didn't have it, so your ass is still glass.
Right.
I mean, we paid you to take the chance with your life, not with our lives.
And you know,
that's why you have the authority to take the chance with your life. And then you have the Dallas police chief come out and say when CNN asks him, "What do you think about Alton Sterling and Philando Castile and Black Lives Matter movement?" and he says, "Well, we have zero tolerance for the loss of a police life." That right there, you just told your community that you view your life as being more important than theirs, and how are you going to serve and protect the community when you right from the word go, you view yourself as being more important than the ones that you're supposed to be serving and protecting? That's ridiculous.
And, you know, frankly...
And you openly admitted it right on news, and nobody says anything about it.
frankly, part of the problem too is I think the amount of training that police officers get in any
It's horrible.
is horrible. It's horrible. I mean, my understanding.
I've been pulled over for going 45 and a 35, and both cops, the driver and the passenger, came up to me and my friends in the car with their guns drawn. I flinched because I knew the cops were coming, but when I looked and seen that they had their guns drawn, I flinched, and the cops stopped advancing because she got scared too when I flinched. And I'm just like, whoa, hey, what's going on here? Why are your guns drawn on me? What is going on? Like, they can just pull out their gun and point it at anybody. And why is it that they don't have the same restrictions that I had over in Iraq?
I mean, to be honest with you, I think
if a car was coming towards my position at a speeding bullet, there was like 15 steps I had to go through before I could even fire a shot into their engine block.
My understanding is just at least in terms of New York, that the training that goes into training cops to fire their weapons is extremely limited. It is basically they learn to fire their weapons at a static target in a static position from one distance, and that's it. Period. No
pop-ups or moving.
No pop-ups.
Like that.
No training about like.
No innocence.
No. Yes.
Combatants.
None of that. Nothing that would cause them to train to deal with stuff. Now, I have heard that from someone who works somewhat affiliated with the training area. Now, maybe there's more training. Maybe different squads have, maybe like there are tactical units that have different level of training. But that's my understanding. And clearly, the very least, the idea that we can't have some type of national standard of like cops need to go through a 3-week program of when you pull your gun and when you don't, when you fire your weapon and when you don't. The fact that, and the bottom line just comes down to people don't want to pay for it. And when society says they don't want to pay for it, and we're seeing people being killed and communities being basically under siege or feeling like they're under siege, and it is legit. I mean, rational for them to feel this way.
Toronto goes a mile away from where my kids go to school.
Right. I mean, we recognize it in the context of occupying another country. Why can't we recognize it in the context of our own country? So I appreciate the call. I mean, it's a good perspective.
Thank you, Sam. I appreciate it too.
Thank you. I mean, this is pretty obvious stuff. But when we send the message of like, well, we're not going to raise taxes to provide any, training in this instance, which is the bare minimum, right? I mean, that's the bare minimum. It seems to me you could be totally 100% pro-cop and think that that anybody who is, has a problem with, these shootings and whatnot is a cuck and a regressive or a non-MRA or whatever the frick it is that the title du jour of racists. It seems to me that you could even hold that position and still feel like, why not have some type of uniform system of training police officers across the country, at least one course that is a minimum before you give someone a loaded weapon and the license to walk around with it and pull it from their holster at any time. You'd think that would be okay. But, again, that's another, talk about the value gap, right? Jesus. Hello, you. I'm Sam Seder. Looking for smart progressive talk that is occasionally amusing? Well, subscribe to our YouTube feed. Subscribe to our podcast. Like us on Facebook. And just generally enjoy us.